Apologies if I sound a little bit sniffly, a little bit throat cracky in this video. I do have a head cold, but I'm just trudging through it because the show must go on. I feel like I sound a little bit like Emma Stone right now, but that could be all in my head. There's a lot in my head right now. Most of it is mucus. Today I wanted to talk about living in a big city versus living in a small town. I spent my entire life growing up in a really small town with about 30,000 people, which, I mean, isn't the smallest. I'm sure some of you probably live in a much smaller town, but that is a pretty small town. And with that small town came a lot of small town attitudes too. So I now live in Toronto, and you can tell I didn't grow up in Toronto by the way I pronounce it, because anyone who lives in Toronto doesn't call it Toronto, they call it Toronto. I said Toronto a lot there. Toronto, Toronto. If you say Toronto 3 times in the mirror, a hand pops out and gives you poutine. Canadian ghost stories. But yeah, I grew up in a really small town. I always knew I did not want to stay. I always knew. Even as a little kid, I was like, this is just a matter of time. By the time I was a teenager, I knew I would go to Toronto as well, because I would visit Toronto on March break trips and stuff like that, and school trips. Every time I was in Toronto, I was like, yeah, I need to be there. This is where I need to be. There's so many things that are ingrained in you if you grew up in a small town that aren't easy to shake. I have a lot of small town habits that people think are really weird here. Like, especially a small Canadian town, things that are part of my personality now that I cannot remove. I don't realize how weird these habits are until I'm in a big city, and I notice them especially when I'm in a big American city. Oh, that is a fish out of water situation for sure. If you grew up in a small town, you just smile at everyone and you greet people walking past you all the time. If someone walks by, you just say, hello, you know, have a nice day. I mean, I've had pink hair for 10 years, so I grew up in a small town with pink hair, which means everybody talked to me. So even though I am shy on some level, that was very quickly ground out of me. Like, I didn't have the option of being shy because of my hair, and growing up in a small town, like, just everybody talks to you. And in some ways I'm really grateful for that, because now I have these social skills where I can basically talk to anybody, and I don't know that I would have had that otherwise, you know? I smile and interact with people probably too much. I've had a lot of moments where I do that and people are really put off. I remember one time we were in like a really nice area in America, just taking a walk, and there was an older couple who were walking towards us on the sidewalk, and I just smiled and I said, have a good night, and they were so taken aback. They looked at me and they crossed to the other side of the street. I was like, whoa, what? That was rude. And my girlfriend was like, no, you're being weird. Stop it. So the good thing about living in a small town was that you could get anywhere in the entire town within 15 minutes, like by car. I took for granted so much how mind-bogglingly easy it was to do anything. If you needed to go get groceries, you needed anything. Anything was so easy. It took less than 15 minutes to do. Whereas in this city, like, things take hours to do. It takes hours to go get something. You have to make a plan to get there. I don't even know that it's necessarily a bad thing though, because it's really made me appreciate things in a different way. For example, when I was living in the small town, if I had a friend who lived, you know, just outside of the town or whatever, like 20-25 minutes away, that would be a big trip for me to take. That wouldn't be a friend I see this often. Whereas my friends here, I usually can't see them unless I travel for about an hour. And like, everyone's just really used to that here, and I guess I'm getting used to it too, because I don't think it's weird. In Toronto, what I love is that nobody cares about you. Unless you are actively harming someone, unless you are being, you know, very rude or inappropriate, people pretty much don't care what you do. They don't care what you look like, they don't care how you dress. Obviously, there's always exceptions to any rule, but that's been really a good thing for me, because when I lived in a small town, I really didn't like leaving the house without wearing makeup. I didn't really like leaving the house without feeling really confident in how I looked, and especially when I was a teenager, that was really difficult for me because I didn't always feel good about how I look. And here, there's this pleasure of anonymity where I don't care. So if I have to run an errand really quickly on a day where, you know, I'm not wearing any makeup, like no eyebrows, nothing, I'll just put on yoga pants and go do that. Because I'm never gonna see these people again and they don't care what I'm doing. I'm just a person. I don't matter to them. It's amazing. I think if you haven't grown up in a small town, you might romanticize it, but in reality, it's like, no, it's not cute and fun and quirky like an indie movie. It's really racist and really religious, and if those aren't things that you subscribe to, you might have a hard time there. I definitely look back on it with rose-colored glasses until I'm there, and then I'm like, oh my goodness, I need to not be here right now. In so many ways, I never felt like I fit in my hometown, but I see myself so much as a product of it. You know, I would not be the person I am today if I didn't grow up in a small town with so many really great people who were so positive for me and were so polite and who I learned so much from. I wouldn't be this person. So for that, I'm really grateful, because it for better or worse, it made me who I am. There are times too when I almost wish I had stayed, just because I feel like a lot of artsy, creative, unique people move away from small towns, and those little pockets really benefit from having those types of people in it. You know, if you are someone who is doing your own really unique, different thing and you're staying in the community that is so different from you, I commend you for that. That's a really hard thing to do. It's really hard to be the weirdo, for lack of a better word. And that is one of the reasons I like being here is, I mean, maybe people do think I'm a weirdo, but they don't tell me. They just let me be. Let me know in the comments if you live in a big city or a small town and what you think of it, and if it's affected who you are or your style or anything like that. I'm really interested. Thank you guys so much again for watching. I'm sorry again for everything that's happening here. I will see you soon. Okay, bye.